Hey folks, welcome again to another live broadcast. As you can tell, Phil is not here. I am Tony Jones sitting in for him today. Phil is actually on his way to Orlando right now because he and I next week will be doing this live from Orlando for the NAPFA conference. That is a fee-only association that he and I belong to, since that is what our firm is all about, being fee-only. So catch us next weekend from there. We were supposed to have Nick Spear here. Nick is involved in disaster restoration for folks, but he had something come up today, so he couldn't make it. A pretty timely topic because of what's happened with the hurricanes and all, but we'll have him on here soon enough to talk about it when we can reschedule with him. But today what I want to do is talk about two things that from a financial advisor point of view I think are very important. Number one, I want to talk about the significance of diversifying, and probably more importantly, how painful it can be for you to not diversify. And number two, I want to talk about personal cash flow management. So let me start by talking about diversifying and the consequences of not doing so, really. So we know, because there's so much information out there, that people who don't diversify can really hurt their portfolios. And we also know that individual investors do really poor to the indexes that they should be compared to. And so the first thing I want to do is just make sure everybody's clear. When I say indexes, or indexes, the S&P 500, for instance, is an index. It is made up of the largest 500 companies in America that are traded publicly. And so you might hear the S&P 500 regularly, but that's what that is. And it's really a measurement of how large U.S. companies are doing in the stock market. Well, we know that by a large amount, sometimes 4, 7, 8%, individuals will lose to the market. And that could be over a lot of time pretty catastrophic. So we want to, as we do here, want to make sure that people are pretty well diversified. But I want to show you a couple of facts that we have found that really prove the point. So let me do that now. Get rid of this, and then I will come to this. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what this is everybody thinks now and then that there's only one or two companies that really move the stock market in any particular time. But what this study over 20 years tells us is that it's not just something that's been happening in the market lately. It always does. What this is telling me is that over this period of time, 1994 to 2014, the stock market has returned, the S&P 500, about 9.3 or 4%. 20 companies alone, 1 through 20, make up 6.3 of that during that time on average, meaning that they make up about 2/3 of the return. And the other 480 stocks that are in the S&P 500 make up the other 3% of the return. So what that tells us is it's very difficult to figure out which one of these 20 stocks you should have in a particular time, because it's constantly changing. And so if you're not very well diversified in this particular sector, you're not really going to get the full amount of the gain, okay? And I also want to mention that I got this chart indirectly from AQR Chris Asness. I found it on Ben Carlson's A Wealth of Common Sense website. So, and I'm going to mention Ben a couple times because I get my own information for him. But if you're interested in learning more, this is his website, A Wealth of Common Sense. So you can go there, get on his blog. It's great information. Go to look at that. One other study that, and I believe I got this from Ben as well, just to give you an example of how it's so hard to pick and choose companies that are going to be winners. There was a study from 1950 to 2010, and I'm forgetting who did the study, but in that time there was about 28,000 publicly traded companies in the U.S. that either starting in 1950 or at any point in time. But when 2010 came around, only about 20% of those companies were being traded. There's a number of good reasons for that, but a lot of them did go by the wayside. And so if you were invested in those companies, you obviously didn't make money, you lost a lot of money. And so if you're really trying to be concentrated, chances are that you're going to lose out on the winners. We have over-mounting evidence that says that you will lose out. So you need to be really careful about how you go about doing that. So if you yourself are an individual investor, that's great, but just make sure you have great diversity. If you are working with an advisor who's telling you he's a great stock picker, you should be really monitoring what that stock picker is doing, because it is almost certain that he's not a great stock picker and that he is going to fail you. So you really need to look for diversity, okay? Without it, you're going to get hurt over the long run and miss out on a lot of returns, okay? So that is a little bit about that part of things. The second part that I want to talk about was cash flow management and personal cash flow management. And what I mean by that is how much, monitoring the money that's coming in to your accounts, as well as how it's going out to pay bills and going into savings and such. What we've seen here, when we have clients at all ranges of the spectrum, some that are just kind of starting out investing, they've dug themselves out of a hole, or maybe they're in a hole and they want our help, to those that have been doing really well and are towards retirement and they've done a great job. Well, those at the higher end who have done really well for themselves tend to have very good cash flow management habits. They're tracking their spending, they're watching their savings, and they're doing a great job of that. Those at the lower end who have dug themselves out of a hole or are still in a hole tend to not have such good habits. So that's what I want to talk about. So the first thing I want to suggest is this is Dave Ramsey's website. He is the debt guru, so I would always suggest going there if you really need help and you're struggling. We are what's called a Smart Investor Pro, and so we work with the Ramsey Company as here in Columbus. Advisors, we're one of the advisors that help individuals that go through Dave that really need help with that. But I do want to give you some tips. What I've realized from people, the best thing that you could do, and this is really for couples especially, because when you're an individual, it's a lot easier to control. But if you're a couple, you need to sit down at times, and the best thing you can do, and this is very hard, is to budget ahead of that spending period, whether it be a month or quarterly, and sit down and either come up with what Dave would tell you, an envelope method or an online method to determine how much you're going to be spending in that period on different expenditures, whether it be food or whether your car expense, gas, entertainment really is a big variable. And so that will give you a better feel of what you're doing. The issue with that and with human nature is it's just a very hard thing to do. We get busy, we get sidetracked, we don't do it. And truthfully, with our clients, even our great ones, it is a very low percentage of folks who do that. So what I want to do is just talk about a couple tips on what you can do to make your life easier, but still track those things. So this is one cash flow management that's used out there. This is powered by eMoney and is the Rebel Financial Personal website. So all of our clients get this. And what it is basically is you will set up and link all your accounts here. And so it'll, your cash, meaning your checking accounts, savings accounts and such, credit cards, investments, everything you have. And the initial thing it will do is, of course, track the spending. It'll tell you exactly where the money is going. But you could take it a step further and use a tool like this to do your budgeting as well. And there's a number of tools out there. You can Google it. Dave Ramsey has one and such. But we know and are certain about the security of this one and what it does. It also has a back end that we use for planning. So that's why we want our clients to use this, because when they have questions or we're doing a financial plan for them, we have that information readily available. And we know it's very secure. So that is the first part, the budgeting part, okay? But let's assume that is very difficult for you and you're just starting out. I always tell people what at least you want to do for a little bit is to figure out your spending. Sit down with your significant other, take a look at how you've spent the last 3 months, the last 6 months, the last year. Figure out where your money is going and why things don't seem to be going according to plan and you're not getting ahead. Figure out why that is. It's critical for you in the long term to have financial success. And this is the first step in doing that, okay? And so what I mean by this is, how much is going to entertainment? How much is going to eating out? You'll have your car expenses and those things. So you want to track that, know where it's going, and you will become a better spender because of it. I do encourage people, as hard as it is, to sit down and work on budgeting at least a couple times. Try it. Even try it for just a segment of your spending, maybe for entertainment or eating out, so you limit yourself a little bit more, okay? But one of the bigger issues I have, aside from tracking that, one of the biggest issues I see is how couples work together and when they're working on cash flow management. If they are not on the same page when they come to meet me, I know that we are going to have some bigger hurdles, and we have to work on that. And so often the biggest problem I have is that you have two independent adults with children doing their own thing. They've each got their own checking account. Their pay comes into that. They've split up the bills somehow. They go about it. And you have a lot of disparity in income, so that will cause some issues. And there'll be some jealousy maybe over one of you having more money than the other because it's totally separate from each other. And the number one reason people get divorced is because of finances. So we want to work hard on correcting that behavior, but yet fitting it with the people that are doing it. So one common way when I have that, that individualism that they want to stick to is I say, look, at least bring it into one account, the money, the pay, and then from there pay your bills together. And then from there you might want a separate account each where you each give yourself, whatever number that is, a few $100s a month, so that you can have your own independent spending. But at least if you're working together in this way, you'll do better in the long run, and you'll have a better idea how that is going. So very difficult topic. So we are here to help. Like I said, go to Ramsey, find his resources. But this is one of the things, and the first thing that we do with folks when we're learning about their behaviors, when we're working with them on an advisor planning side. But I just encourage you to talk to somebody or at least start the process because of how significant it is. I will make one more lesson here that we teach people, and this is the easiest way to do things. As they say, it's easy, but it's not simple. A goal would be, this is just doing two things. One is to put enough savings away so that you are putting enough money away to have good control in your life in the future and save for retirement. So for instance, a goal would be to get to saving 20% of your income away and living on that. And as you increase your income, your expenses stay the same, but that amount can go up, okay? And you do that while doing number two, and that is not using a credit card. So I don't want folks going over here and putting 20% away or whatever that number is, but over here spending a bunch on a credit card. So you've got to cash flow while using that 20%. Now, a discussion I was having earlier is a lot of people are spending 100% of their money. And of course that would be impossible to go from 0% savings to 20. So you have to figure out for you how you can get up that ladder. It might be 15%, it might be 20. I know when I look at my own, I count our company 401k match is at 20%. So that makes things easier on me, but really that's part of the pay, so you can look at that. But let's say you're at zero today. In fact, some people are spending 102% of their money and more than that. The first thing you want to do, of course, is what Ramsey would tell you is, there's a number of steps. I'm shortcutting these, but you need to get money set aside for emergencies, and you need to stop using your credit cards and pay down that debt, of course. But when you're to the point of when you're getting ahead, put that money into savings, start out at 1%, 3%, 5%, and then gradually increase that. There are plenty of tools within a 401k that will give you an automatic increase annually. But you always should feel, I tell people, a little discomfort when you are making these sacrifices. In other words, it shouldn't be too easy to do it. You need to be growing that steadily. So if you're at 20% and you're doing things great, go to 21, 22%, start to increase that. So work on the simplest way that you could start to get ahead from a cash management point of view. Stop using the credit cards and start increasing how much you put away. So that's it. I appreciate it. We talked about, a little bit about diversifying, and really the other end of that is not diversifying and how much that can hurt you, and also the personal cash flow management. We have just touched on those subjects. Don't have a lot of time here. We've been talking, 12, 14 minutes. So we are here for you at any time. We'll be putting that information up on the screen. Just reach out to us, how we can help you. Like I said, we don't have minimums for investing, and we work with people on all facets of planning and advising. So anyway, thank you for the time. I know we covered a lot here today in a short period, so watch it again if you have to. But as I said, next week we will be in NAPFA at the NAPFA conference talking, and so we'll see you then, okay? Thanks again, and have a great weekend.